it's a topic that I'm extremely passionate about. I was a fitness instructor for over 40 years, and everything was going swimmingly until I hit menopause, and then the world crumbled. But right now, as I'm in my late 60s, I am extremely grateful for my life as it is now. And I wanted to share a little story with you that actually happened last night. My daughter and son-in-law host a Christmas party every year, and it's bigger than Ben-Hur, and like 100 people show up. And while we were there last night, there was a guy called Travis, who I've met before. I met him last year, and a really nice guy. Lives from Ireland, Regini. He's from Ireland, but lives in Canada now, and his parents live in Ireland. And he said to me last night, he said, I'm not sure you guys really understand what an incredible thing you did when you packed up our life in Australia of 40 years, sold everything, and moved to Canada to be close to your children, which is menopause. And but then he went, and he stopped. I said, it's okay, you can say at your age, that's fine. Because he said, my parents are exactly the same age as you, and they would never have considered it. And for a moment, I kind of just took on board that lovely compliment he made. And then this morning when I woke up, I had a real aha moment. I thought, you know what? That was really brave to sort of sell up everything and move, not knowing anybody. My children live here. This is the reason why we moved. But about 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine reached out to me that I actually haven't spoken to we figured out about 7 years. She lives in New York, and I was in Australia at the time when we became friends. And then she decided to take herself off social media. Amazing gal. And she reached out to me 2 weeks ago, and we hadn't spoken in ages. And we had a call last week, and she was the gal that introduced me to this modality I'm going to teach you today called EFT. And I was in an accountability group with Susan, and she was very insistent that at a time I was going through some real challenges with my health, and I was right in the throes of menopause, and it was all and I put on weight, and I was grumpy and brain fog. She said, try this modality. And at first I thought, I'm not having a bar of this thing. It looks stupid. Tapping on your face while you're saying the truth of how you feel. She was so insistent. She actually had a business in sales that I tried it. Now, the very first time I did it, I felt this massive shift in my thoughts and my process. And I actually went on then to become an EFT trainer. And it wasn't until Travis said that to me last night, and I thought about what Susan coming into my life, that I got it. Life hasn't always been like this. I've got a better body now than when I was 40, more energy now than I can remember. We're living the life we love. My husband and I, we've been together. Actually, yesterday was our 45th anniversary of the day we met. And we met in Edmonton in Canada. Couldn't believe I've done this total full circle. And my kids are just doing so well, and we've got great relationships with them. And I thought, wow. Because when I was going through menopause and perimenopause, here's me. I'd been in the fitness industry for 25 years. I gained 20 pounds. How does that happen when you're a fitness instructor? I don't know. I gained 20 pounds because my response to that, my reaction to that was, I could just diet. I'll just eat less, or I'll exercise more. But I was exhausted. I was overweight. I was exhausted. I had brain fog. Couldn't remember my name, let alone anybody else's. I don't know let me know if this has happened to you. You're standing talking to someone that you know, and you cannot remember their name. Or I'd be sitting at my desk. I was working in a corporate job at the time, and I'm sitting at my desk. Yep. And I used to have to put together a board report for every Monday morning for the board meeting. And I remember looking at this document thinking, I don't know what to write. And I thought, oh my God, what's happening to me now? There's Alzheimer's in my family too. And so that was, oh my God, have I got early onset dementia? No, just going through menopause. Beautiful. And I really felt like I spiraled downwards. I should have known all the right things. I should have known them. But instead, I continued to do what I had been taught to do, which was want to lose weight, reduce calories, exercise more. And it, obviously, my motivation was something to do that was wrong with me. And one of the things that happened when I started to introduce EFT was I started to make better choices. So I want to share, just so you get a visual of what it was when I was going through menopause. This was a particular night. I asked to speak at an event for women over 50 who were successful. So this was just before Susan and I had this conversation. Here I am. I had been a fitness instructor for all those years. I just left my corporate job to go back into coaching women. That's another whole story for another time. And I had to go to this event. I couldn't find a thing that fit me. Nothing. Pulled everything out of my closet. Eventually, because I had a half an hour to get to this event, I pulled out a pair of pants that were way too tight for me, and I couldn't do the zip up. So I got a piece of elastic and I threaded it through from the button to the buttonhole. Then I had to put a shirt over the top of that, and then I had to put a scarf over the top of that so you couldn't see it. And I went home that night and literally cried all the way home, because how could I have gotten to this point? How could I'd had a TV show back in the 80s. I used to teach fitness on TV. And all of a sudden, everything that I had thought was just not working anymore. And so when I drove home, I really felt like something had to change. And what the fitness industry was teaching wasn't working. And I knew at that point something had to change. It was just when Susan came along and introduced me to this modality that all the pieces fell in place. And that's when I started to trust my own intuition. And what I love about this now is I actually have a better body than I did when I was 55. And can I tell you, this is not a result of dieting. This is not a result of excessive exercise. This is a result of what I'm going to teach you today. Not only is my body better now at 68 than it was when I was 50 or 40 even, but my whole life is better. I have a greater understanding of myself as an individual. I recognize now that menopause is a transitional journey back to you. And the result, as I get told all the time, how do you stay motivated? Well, I don't stay motivated. It just comes naturally to me now. I want to get up in the morning and go and do a 20-minute workout or a 9-minute workout. And I'll share that later on too. I want to fuel my body because I understand that fueling my body is essential for me to stay focused. And the thing about this is that we have been led down the garden path for so long. And I was in the fitness industry. I was in it in 1980. I began, remember Lycra? Anyone else have Lycra? Leg warmers, step classes, cardio classes, you name it, I did it. And I used to teach 4 aerobic classes a day. So understanding that what happens in this process is about you, what you believe about yourself. Now, what happens in menopause is this. I truly believe that menopause is a transitional time. Your body goes through these changes like a chrysalis, that has to sort of lock itself away for a period of time. And that you become more of you. But in the process, there's some pain to go through. So the nutrition part and the exercise part is the part that cares for the physical part of your body. The emotional part, the belief structure, the letting go of some old limiting beliefs is the you part. For most of our problem is this visceral fat. What's visceral fat? It's the fat that sits behind the abdominal muscles. On average, visceral fat increases by 5 to 8% of our total body fat during perimenopause, and 15 to 20% of our total body fat in menopause. And women gain, on average, 5 pounds of visceral fat as our estrogen levels decrease and our metabolism slows down. Now, here's the thing with visceral fat. It cannot be reduced just by diet, because visceral fat is made up of a whole heap of issues. It could be poor sleep, it could be stress, it could be prediabetes, and visceral fat has been linked to type 2 diabetes, heart disease, some cancers, and some inflammatory diseases. So what we're going to do is focus on how we release visceral fat. And as I said, it's a container. It's a lot of aspects. Now, when we restrict calories, it impacts on our metabolism and our brain function, which are the two things I think for most of us that we find very difficult. Let me know in the chat below if that's what you're struggling with at the moment. But the diet-focused industry and low-fat dogma has resulted in us being under-muscled, protein deficient, and processed food overloaded. Were you part of the low-fat generation? Did you low-fat yogurt, low-fat cheese, low-fat, take all the fat off everything, don't eat any fat because it's going to put on fat? That theory came about by a study, believe it or not, that was sponsored by the Heart Foundation. And it was to push people to stop eating things like butter, drinking milk, and whole fat. And the push was for things like margarine, which are seed oils. Those seed oils, and I'll talk about that in a little bit in a minute, have been linked to now many of our problems. You'll hear a lot in the press now. Yeah, Mary, absolutely too scared to eat anything today. Exactly. Like, it's just been this dogma that's pushed in. And the seed oils in food have now been linked to so many of our health issues, especially with children. Yeah, Dawn, it was promoted to eat junk food. I know, 100-calorie packages, right? And I was part of that. Like I used to teach 4 aerobic classes a day when I was 25 till about 35. That's what happened when I hit menopause. My metabolism had dropped so low. My body fat had dropped so low. My muscle mass, because I dieted, was low. So when when menopause hit and the changes in my gut microbiome happened, that's where the weight went on, because I didn't have the muscle mass to increase my metabolism. So the key to all of this is we have to relearn how to fuel our bodies. And that, can I tell you, is a big deal. Because the belly fat brain fog key strategy is to eat more, not less. And I know for many of you, and if any of you came out of that low fat area, it's really challenging. In fact, I had a client last year whose doctor, this woman was about 5 foot, she's about 5'6" or 7. And we went to school together, so we're the same age. And he'd put her on a 1,200 calorie a day diet. And I said to her, all that's doing is stopping the inevitable. That's all that's doing. You need 1 gram per pound desired body weight of protein, 30 grams of fiber, and intermittent fasting and carb cycling can help. Oh, I've just lost my screen. Sorry, guys. There we go. Let me just get this back down. All right. So you need to be looking at, 1 gram of protein per desired body weight. So whatever your desired body weight is. So, and I'm not talking about super skinny. I'm just, what's your normal kind of fighting weight? So for me, yeah, Dawn, exactly. It's all back. Exactly. And because when we go on restricted calorie diets, we lose not only fat, we lose water and we lose muscle mass. And as I said before, our muscle mass decreases as we get older. And so what we need to be focused on is building muscle. That's got to be priority. And the only way, there's two ways you can do that. One is the protein. We've got to increase protein. And so we've got to change that mindset about if I eat less, I'll weigh less. No, that's been sold to us. We need to eat more, because if we fill our bodies full of good whole foods, and I'm talking not stuff that comes from a packet, I'm talking the stuff that's on the outside of the supermarket, fruit and vegetables, meat, chicken, seafood, dairy, and not filling our trolleys full of ultra processed or processed foods. That's the key to this. Now, what I find, since we moved to Canada, we used to always shop at farmers markets in Australia. So we would buy avocados from the guy that had the avocado farm an hour down the road, or the banana was an hour, the guy that grew the banana was an hour and a half away. Here, everything in Canada is shipped in from somewhere, except berries, which are just brilliant, and some root vegetables. And I noticed here the amount of processed foods there are. And so one of the things that I really encourage my clients to do is become a label reader. Before you take anything off the shelf, what's in it? And you will find if you're buying something with 17 or 27 ingredients in it, let me ask you, when was the last time you cooked something with 17 ingredients or 27 ingredients? I don't. It's going to have 4 or 5 with salt before I'll cook. So number one, fueling your body. So 30 to 40 grams of fiber. And you can get that with piece of fruit, cruciferous vegetables such as broccoli, cauliflower, those type of really good things, and whole wheat. I recommend sourdough bread. If you can get a good sourdough bread, it's really good for your gut. So if your focus is on, okay, how do I get this into my body so I'm fueling it? You will find, you won't be hungry, number one, because you've just got to eat so much. And B, you'll have more energy. And C, because you're not filling your body full of processed foods and ultra-processed foods, which are full of seed oils, your brain fog will go away. So as we move into menopause, the gut-brain connection changes, and estrogen dropping has a massive impact on our gut microbiome. Estrogen actually, even though it's produced in the ovaries, we have estrogen receptors all over our body. So menopause impacts on women very differently. Some may have things like frozen shoulder, can be caused by lack of estrogen, joint pain, brain fog, weight gain, and sometimes hot flashes don't even happen. Sleep is another thing that's an issue. And I'll share a little bit about that in a minute. But the thing about it is that the thing is learning to refuel my body. And I teach in the program that I run how to be an intuitive eater. Because one of the things that I have discovered in my 45 years in doing this is that what food is right for one person is not right for the next. There are no one size. That's why diets don't work for everybody. You know, I come from, let me know if you recognize some of these. Atkins diet. Who was the other one? Nathan Pritikin diet, which was low fat, everything up. There was Fit for Life, which you only ate fruit till 12 o'clock. Dawn's morning, so low carb, low fat, paleo, keto, you name it. Every now and it comes across every decade. And as I said, I'm doing this a long time. And remember egg and grapefruit. Remember the egg and grapefruit diet. And does anybody remember the Israeli army diet? Just quietly, that was like 2 days of apples, 2 days of cheese, 2 days of something else. And you could lose 10 pounds, but went straight back on again. And so though, like people say, keto really worked for me, or paleo really worked for me, you should be doing it. Well, it doesn't work for everybody. our gut microbiome and who we are changes. And so being an intuitive eater and understanding how food impacts on you, because your body will always tell you. And it usually shows up as inflammation. You might find that your hands are swollen, your face is puffy, your joint pain is worse. That's inflammation. That means that something you've eaten, your body is fighting against. But that's what inflammation does. It's like if you cut your finger, it swells and the body sends blood to try and fix it. That's what inflammation is. It's the body saying something's here that's not working, so I'm going to turn up this inflammation. And the problem is that for many of us, we live in this inflamed state and we don't know it. We will blame our lack of sleep on something. We will blame our joint pain on something. Or maybe it's my arthritis, or maybe it's my rheumatism. And the bottom line is often inflammation, and it comes back to a food or something you're eating your body isn't agreeing with, and it's trying to tell you. But we get so caught up in the diet dogma that we don't listen because somebody lost 10 kilos doing da 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 da. The same with intermittent fasting. As a woman going through those later stages of menopause, you shouldn't be doing the same intermittent fasting every day. The intermittent fasting, does everybody know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about intermittent fasting? Okay, so, and often we call it time-restricted eating. So intermittent fasting is where you have a window of eating and you have a window of not eating. And that window of not eating is what we call rest and digest. It allows the body to process the food and turn it into energy for all parts of our body. But as we move through our menopausal journey, the key is, the key is not to do the same thing all the time. Excuse me, I'm gonna have a drink of water because my throat's, yep. Might everybody else have a drink of water too? That's another thing, ladies, we all need to be drinking more water. I'm just getting over a cold, so I knew my throat was going to catch a bit. Back to intermittent fasting. So it's not doing the same thing all the time. So there's 12-12. So finish eating at 7 o'clock in the morning. You don't start eating again until 7 o'clock at night. Basically, it's don't snack at night. You might want to stretch that out to 14-10, moving your breakfast a little further, 2 hours after you wake up. Or you might want to switch it to 16-8, which seems to be the trend. Now, the thing with 16-8, it's just like not you finished eating at 7 o'clock, you're not going to have something to eat till 11 o'clock the next day. But the key is not to do the same thing every day. That you might do 16-8 for a couple of days. You might do, say, a 12-12. You might just not fast at all on the weekend. And that helps the body readjust. We fall into this habit of doing the same thing all the time, and our body needs to change things up a little bit. Yeah, so, excuse me, so understanding, again, it's coming back to listen to your body. Okay, let me do another share, and we'll get, all right. All right, this is my big bugbear. This is I think if you honestly just do this one thing when you leave this call, it will make an enormous difference to your life. And that is ditching seed oils. Now, in 1961, the AHA, American Health Association, accepted $20 million in today's terms, funding from Procter & Gamble by recommending replacing butter with heart-healthy alternatives like vegetable oil and Crisco oil. Now, Procter & Gamble, Mr. Procter and Mr. Gamble, figured out a way of what to do with leftover seeds, sunflower, safflower, rice bran, that they could put it through this enormous process. If you went to a seed oil manufacturing plant, you would never eat it again, where it goes through a series of, they have to crush these seeds, and what comes out is black. And it goes through, they're like oil refineries, these big seed oils. They're like oil refineries. And you crush that through that. What comes out smells terrible and is black. So they have to put deodorizers in it, and they have to put colorings in it to make it look like oil. And it's now gotten to a point where the seed oils are now have infiltrated to almost every aspect of our food chain. Told me this many years ago. And this is when I was 30, mind you. She said, you girls, you young girls, try to do so much. And I think everybody on this call is probably the same. We are doing way more than our parents ever did at our age. I remember my mother at 50, before she got sick, saying, I just want to just retire. 50. I'm 10 years that I'm younger now. I just want to retire. I've had enough. I just want to knit. Women weren't expected to have so much in their brain. We weren't expected to do so much as we age, but we've changed now. We live in a different world now. We have access to information, and we have access to things that we can possibly do that our parents didn't have access to, and our mothers in particular. And so what we're expecting our bodies, we're trying to change our body in a generation, is what we're trying to do is we have very high expectations about what we can and can't do and what we should and shouldn't be doing. And so to support that, you have to care for it. We have to change the way we've always done things. That's what's critically important. All right, I'm going to move quickly on because I want to where's my share screen? I want to make sure we have plenty of time to do an EFT session before we finish. And I want to share with you what I've got going on, a little bit of an offer I've got for you. All right, menopause strategy number 3, your body and brain need good fat. Oh boy, this riles me up when I think of those studies that were done. Cholesterol, big question mark over it. Who was pushing it? A lot of new research coming about what's a normal cholesterol level, because our brain needs cholesterol for brain function. Our body needs fat for essential brain function. Do you know 2/3 of all people diagnosed with Alzheimer's are women? And I've spoken to many friends of mine whose parents are going through this process, their mothers in particular. And when I ask the question about nutrition, they'll all say they grew up in the era of that low fat time or didn't really care about nutrition. My mother was one of 9, and she passed at 56 of breast cancer from or with, we're not quite sure, breast cancer. And of the 9, 5 have died with Alzheimer's or dementia, with or of Alzheimer's. There's only 3 of them left now. The number's right? Yeah, 3 of them left. And I look back to their not only childhood trauma, they were evacuated from New Guinea during the war, but their nutrition changed when they all grew up in New Guinea. My grandfather worked in New Guinea. My grandmother lived up there. And their nutrition changed dramatically when they moved back to Australia, from really totally, my mother used to say that just fresh fruit and vegetables and meat, and they killed the pigs and, chickens, to white bread and cheese and, because they had no money. And it's really interesting now, the stuff I know about nutrition, to see where this was laid down. So your brain and your body need good fat. It fuels your body and gives you energy, and it helps with your hormonal health. Good fats. We're talking, as you can see, coconut oil, olive oil, avocados and avocado oils, things like salmon, nuts, chia seeds, essential for our health. But they also help us absorb the certain vitamins A, D, E, and K, which are essential for our brain. Good fats are anti-inflammatory. So the stuff you see in the supermarket, that Crisco and all that stuff, it's inflammatory. These are anti-inflammatory. And that's, you add in the diet culture, we add in seed oils, we add in the cardio, we add in not eating, properly, plus stress. That impact on our health going through menopause and perimenopause, which is already we're struggling because our body's way of coping with stress has changed. And so trying to release the belly fat or decrease brain fog just by food and exercise isn't going to work. It's not going to happen. EFT, what it is a blend of cognitive behavioral therapy and acupressure. Now, a lot of people actually use tapping points when they don't realize what they're doing. If you've got a headache, people will often rub the side of their eye. Or if you're thinking about something, you go, Yeah, okay, let me think about it. Or if somebody has a shock, you go, oh, they're all tapping points. They're all our body's natural way of trying to make us calm. Now, EFT, as I mentioned, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is talk therapy, while you're tapping on these points, lowers cortisol. And when you lower that cortisol up to 30%, what happens is you can think more clearly, because stress stops you thinking clearly. That's why we reach for the foods when we're stressed. It's why we reach for the alcohol when we're stressed. We're looking for something to calm us so we can think more clearly. It's the body's natural way of dealing with it. Perimenopause and menopause heightens everything. As I mentioned before, all of a sudden you can't, the alcohol, where you used to have a glass of wine and you feel good and life was good, now it impacts on your sleep. The sugar impacts differently because our gut microbiome is changing as the change in estrogen. And our body, as I mentioned, needs estrogen and cholesterol and fat. Our brain needs it to work effectively. So if all of this isn't working in conjunction, then the brain fog comes from, the belly fat comes from, and you can't shift it. The beautiful thing about EFT is A, once you learn, you can do it yourself. B, you can use it on anything. Food cravings, pain, anxiety, stress, fear. For me, when Susan worked with me, I was right in the throes of perimenopause or menopause, and I couldn't think. Like I was just over it, nothing was working, couldn't lose weight. And so I used EFT in those days to help me calm my central nervous system. And when I calmed the central nervous system, what I started to do also was release limiting beliefs, because the hippocampus, hypothalamus, and amygdala hold our memories like a time capsule. They hold these memories, and it's like if you were 2 years old and you put your hand on a hot stove when you were 2, or it's hot, you pull your hand back. That memory sticks in your amygdala, stays there, because the next time you're going to put your hand off, you know that it'll burn you, so you don't. Now, as we go through life, we have these little t or big T traumas that happen to us. And what happens is we create a story around those that get locked in our brain. Things like, people will attract the same relationship over and over again, or they'll have weight issues over and over again, or money issues over and over again. It all relates to a story you were told or an experience you experienced, and it's trapped in this amygdala. Now, what happens when you're highly stressed, you go back to old patterns of doing things. When you release the emotional connection to the story of whatever happened to you, you think better. You have a different response to something. And fear is a great one. A client of mine was in a car accident, terrible car accident, and couldn't get back in the car because it was just brought back so many terrible memories. And if she was at home and could hear a screeching of a brake, she'd just go into just terror. When we tapped, she could release the emotional connection to the memory, so she didn't have a stress response. So she could get back in the car. She could go back to driving again, because all that was doing was her body's way, her brain's way of trying to protect her from going into a car accident again. But when we release the emotional connection, is this making sense to everybody? Just let me know, yes or no. When we have this emotional connection, it blocks us. So what it is we don't know sometimes the reason why we don't have motivation. And oftentimes it can be because you were told something as a child. You might have been told, oh, you'll never amount to anything. Or what makes you think you're so special? Or you're always going to be a little bit chunky. And when I was going through menopause, what I now realize is that because my life was changing, all of a sudden I'd raised 3 kids, and I'd been really, I had careers and a job on the side, and, balancing balls, and, and one by one, the 3 kids left home. And suddenly I wasn't the president of the Parents and Friends Association anymore. Suddenly I wasn't the manager of the soccer team anymore. Suddenly I wasn't driving to pick my daughter up at 9:30 at night from dance and bring her back home and, trying to down. It was like, I remember sitting on the couch one day and thinking, who am I now? What does this mean now for me? And I honestly believe that's what menopause is all about. It's about refinding who you were before life got in the way. And all that physical stuff is kind of a way to slow down, as I mentioned before. And tapping helps you unpack the limiting beliefs you've had that have got you to where you are now, because you're about to recreate a new way. You're about to recreate. You are not the same person when you come out of menopause. You're just not. Let's do a tapping, because I'm very at time. And I'll show you how it works. Number one, I want you just to think about something that's driving you a bit crazy at the moment. It's a bit stressful. Might be your weight. Might be something that's going on at work that's not working. Might be frustration over somebody's, I don't want a big thing. I want something little. And I want you for the moment to just think about that little thing that's driving you crazy. I want you to think about that little thing. And I want you to measure on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being big and 1 being not so much, how annoying that is. Just let me know in the comments. Just pop yes if you've got something. Yes, yes, yes. Great. Thank you. Now, feel in your body where you feel that energy, whether it's stress or anxiety. And just where do you feel it in your body? You might feel it in your neck. I feel everything in my gut, or my chest or your back. Just where do you feel that? And then on a scale of 1 to 10, as I said, what's the feeling? If you could put a number to it and write that down. Shoulders, gut, upper right shoulder, great, Stella. Dawn, 6 to 7, great. Good. All right. Stella's an 8. Awesome. So I want you to stay focused on that, whatever it is. And this is generalized tapping. The tapping works best always if we get very specific, but for this exercise, I want it to be quite general. So let's look at the tapping points. You always start off on the side of the hand. You're going to follow along with me, okay? And we tap here. We call this to prevent psychological reversal. So what we're doing is trying to get really clear on how you feel. Tapping works best when you're specific, whatever the thing is. So I might say stress. I can feel it in my stomach, and you're going to say I feel anxious or fearful or whatever it is you're feeling. And you're going to be specific where you feel it. And I'm just going to use general. So 3 times here. Then we're going to go to the tapping points. So we start off where the eyebrow meets the nose and just tap here. And then we're going to follow the brow around and we're going to tap on the outside of the eye. Remember I told you that's where people tend to rub if they've got a headache. The next part is right under the eye, on the bone, directly under the pupil. The next one is the nose point, right directly under the nose. Next one is the chin point, but it's the groove of the chin, not down here, but right here. The next one's a little bit more complicated. So where you find the collarbone points that meet in the middle, you're going to just drop down. It's a little bit kind of fleshy, just sitting under the bone. The next one is under the arm, and it's about where your bra strap sits. So it's about 3 or 4 inches below the armpit. And the last one is right at the very top of the head, not the back, but right at the very top of the head. The Chinese, interesting, called this the 100 star point, I think it's called. And it was the one when I was training. I said, can we drop this one? Like, it looks like we're just like gorillas. No, that's really important. Okay, cool. I'll do it then. All right. So focused on your thing, focused on your issue. You're just going to repeat after me as I say it and stay focused on that issue. Okay. Just tapping on the side of the hand like this. Even though I feel this level of stress, and it's about a level, whatever it is, I deeply and completely accept myself and how I feel. Even though I feel this stress in my gut or shoulders, I deeply and completely accept myself and how I feel. Even though I feel this stress in my gut, this level 8 stress. I deeply and completely accept myself and how I feel. All right, we're going to tap. So you can do 2 hands or 1 hand, whatever is right for you. This stress I feel under the eye, feeling this stress, this level 7 or 6 stress, feeling it in my gut, all this stress. Under the arm, this stress I feel, feeling it in my gut, this level 8 stress, feeling all this stress. Didn't realize it was there until I focused on this stress. This level 6 or 7 stress, feeling it in my gut or my shoulders, under the arm, all this stress, top of the head, feeling this stress. Okay, just want you to take a deep breath and let it go. Have a sip of water if you've got one handy. And I want you to go back to that feeling now. And tell me if you can feel a shift at all, up or down. And just let me know in the chat. Much better. Great, Sandy. Stella, you were an 8. Where is it now? 6. Great. Shoulders are more relaxed, Dawn. About a 4 now. Great. Terrific. So is anybody, now it's interesting, the thing about EFT is that when you, what we're aiming for is a 0 to a 2 with EFT. And the reason is, it's like to get that stress down. Now, if I was working with you one-on-one, I would be asking you, what's the story of this stress? What causes it? How does it make you feel? Because it's like, you know, if you've got the garbage, someone says, Mum, the kitchen garbage smells bad. When you don't get right down to the 0 or 2, it's like spraying deodorizer over the garbage instead of taking it out. And that's the problem with a lot of the online tapping, is that they'll make you feel better for a period of time. Because, you know, we said Stella's went down from 8 to 6. But I said, if I was working with you, I'd have it come down even further. I'd want to really getting it right down, because then what we can do when it's down is that the neurons in the brain, and they've studied this under MRI. In fact, my mentor was an associate professor at the university in Australia and studied this under MRI. And when you tap, the neurons in the brain are, wired together, fired together. You've probably heard that saying before. When we tap and reduce stress, the neurons for a split second pull apart and they rewire. And so when they rewire, what we want to do is we want to lock in a new way of thinking. And so we have to get it down to a 0 or a 2 before we can lock that new way of thinking in. Otherwise, it just goes back together. And did you know our brain naturally will go to a negative thought than a positive thought? Because that's the way our brains work. It's smoother, a negative thought. In fact, we have, I don't know how many thousands thoughts and lots of stuff about that. Most of them are negative and most of the same things. So it's got to drop to a 0 or 2 in order for you to rewire it. But for instance, with Stella, when we drop from 8 to a 6, that means your cortisol levels are coming down, which means that's, you're going to feel better. You're going to make better decisions about that. And that's what we're doing with EFT all the time. I mean, I've seen some incredible things happen with EFT. A client of mine, Julie, she won't mind because I tell this story all the time, in Australia, she doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, but she used to drink 2 liters of Coca-Cola a day. We did one tapping session with her, went about an hour and a bit, and she stopped drinking Coca-Cola. And when I checked up on her, that was 4 years ago. She came and saw me again for another matter that had happened with her mother. But I said, "Have you drunk Coke again?" She said, "Never." She said, "I literally went from 2 liters of Coca-Cola a day to nothing." So when you have something that's repeating all the time, there's a story there. And there's a story behind every decision we make. There's a story behind when we don't do what we say we're going to do. There's a story behind procrastination, and it's often fear. Or it's a story of not being wanting to be seen, or it's a self-sabotage, or, a gazillion million other things. But we've gotten so used to blaming ourselves for not sticking to something. It's not. It's a story we're telling ourselves. And when you clear that, and that's what happened when I began working with EFT, I felt it the first time Susan did that session with me, and then went on to train much later. And in fact, I tapped every day for 365 days. Every day I tapped. And I can tell you, I was not the same person after that. I remember coming downstairs one Sunday. I'd been tapping on something that had come up for me. And I said to Jerry, my husband, "Who am I? I don't know who I am." Because these stories I carry that I thought were me were not me. They're not me. They were things I were told. They were the stories I told myself based on things that happened to me in the past. When I was able to clear all that, then I settled into being able to be myself. And I think we all do that. We all have these stories that come from somewhere else. They're not ours. And it was then I realized the pattern I'd created in my life. I'd get to a certain point in my life and I'd feel like an imposter and I'd pull back. So many times in my life. I look at my kids now. We were out last night and I thought, these terrific kids. I said to my husband, they're a result of us working on ourselves. That's what they've mirrored. It's because we are, and the women, you are here, whether we like to admit it or not, we are the center of the houses. We're the center of our house. And us clearing our stuff, the wonderful thing about, I nearly forgot to tell you, wonderful thing about EFT is, as you clear the stuff for you, you're clearing the stuff for the future generations, because they're not carrying that story that you had. You're changing them as you're changing yourself. So we are at 20 past. I want to do a quick reframe of EFT to sort of wrap this up. Let's just finish off with a tapping to finish with. And tapping. Too late, Sandy. No. Anyway, okay. Deep breath. Even though I can feel that stress come down, I choose to be present to understand what's going on for me. Even though I've been carrying that stress for a while, time to let it go. It no longer serves me. Even though this stress has probably been living with me for a little while, this moment in my life is about to change it. Okay, tapping now. I choose to release this. I choose to stay focused. I choose to recognize this stress served me in some way, but I'm ready to let it go. I'm ready to rewire a new way of thinking. I'm so grateful that I discovered this, so I can do things differently. I choose to honor every emotion I have. I choose to let go of the ones that no longer serve me. I choose to reimplant new ones. I choose to be my whole self, to show up in a way that I know I can be. This stage of my life is my most powerful. I've earned the right to be my whole self. I choose to honor all my emotions. Last one. And I choose to honor me. Take a deep breath. Let it go. Ooh. And so it's said, and so it shall be. Thanks, Dawn. All right, I got to have something really special I'd like to share with you about a 2-day event that I've got coming up in January 2025. And so it's everything we've been talking about on this call today, but to help you capture everything that you want to achieve in 2025. So over the 2 days, what we're going to do is look at, okay, where are you heading in 2025? What's important to you? I'm going to help you create a one-word theme for your year, which is a powerful practice I've been doing since 1997. And can I tell you, is a way to keep you focused for the year. I'm going to help you go through that and help you create a word that will become your theme for the year. Then what we'll do is we're going to create an action plan. And in that action plan, we're going to be looking at, for you, what are the right foods for you to eat? I'm going to get you to do an internal dialogue. Okay, what are the foods that I know cause inflammation in my body? And where am I not listening to that? And we're also going to set up an exercise program for you. And I'm going to also give you, as part of the weekend, access to my 9-minute workouts, 9 of them that you'll get access to get you on your way. And on top of all of that, what we'll be doing is we'll be using EFT to help you lock in those intentions you want for 2025. We're going to be looking at the limiting beliefs that are holding you back. What are the stories you keep telling yourself? What's holding you back from really having the motivation to exercise, eat well, drink lots of water, get good sleep? What is the stories you're telling yourself? And I get to work with you for 2 whole days. Well, 3 hours a day for 2 days. We're going to do one is the first 3 hours is going to be a lot of work. The second 3 hours on the second day, we're actually going to go, okay, what are the beliefs that are coming up for you? What are the things that are holding you back? Make it really impactful. So we get all that, setting all that up, setting a program up for 2025 for you, looking at those limiting beliefs, using EFT. You'll learn how to use it. And that's all for $47. $47. And I'm going to help you make 2025 your best year yet. Get rid of that brain fog, clear that belly fat, and really step into who you are in this next stage of your journey. The new you. Who do you become now? So that starts in January. 2 days in January, $47. I want to create a community of women just like you who are wanting to do more with their lives and know there's more for them. And looking after your health and well-being comes first, separating all those limiting beliefs and understanding where they come from. So $47, click on the link, and I'd love to see you part of the Stronger, Leaner, Lighter for 2025 weekend. Click on the link. Questions before we go, I'd love to just unmute yourself and tell me what you got out of today. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you. Yes, Sandy, 2-day event, amazing opportunity. And you know, women work really well when we work together as a team and a group, because we support each other, and no judgment. Where we are is where we are. You're welcome, Sharon. Thank you for being here. I hope I see you on the 2-day event. I always feel like when I work with people like this, I kind of know a little bit more about you. It's lovely. And I would really love it if you'd have a look at that 2-day event upcoming in January. We're doing over 3 hours. Thank you, Sandy. Sandy's just popped the link in. And we're going to make sure 2025 just pans itself out for you. That, you know, there'll be no such thing as having to diet to lose weight. It'll just happen. because we're going to clear the limiting beliefs. We're going to do a little bit of nutrition and we'll do a little bit of exercise, and you get my 9-minute workouts and all that stuff. But we're mostly going to focus on you. What do you want? What do you want? And we're going to clear any limiting beliefs that are holding you back. All right. Let's just finish off with a tapping to finish with. Thank you, Sen. I'm going to practice EFT. Join in the class in January. That'd be awesome. Yes, yes, yes. Fantastic, Stella.